Hi, everybody. This is going to be a video for making a hexaflexagon. We're going to start with using the printout that I sent you guys, and I'm going to show two ways of making it from this handout, and then how to make it from a regular sheet of paper and how you can start with just a strip of paper to fold it up. So we're going to start with this. I'm going to kind of read off of this handout. This is a hexaflexagon. You're going to cut out the full shape, then accordion fold along the diagonal lines. You can score along the diagonals to guide your folding. Refer to the diagram for steps to fold the hexaflexagon. That's going to be attached to the Canvas module. You can see a diagram for this to remind you how to fold it. But once you do it, it should make sense. And then I am going to demonstrate how to do it from a strip of paper that's just freehand cut. And then also this text, the ratio of the hexaflexagon strip is 1:7, or 1 inch wide to 7 inches long. So that would mean 1 inch here and 7 inches here. For a larger finished hexaflexagon, consider 3 inches wide to 21 inches long, or 2.5 inches wide to 17.5 inches long. So that's approximately what I'm going to demonstrate when I show you cutting this from a strip of paper off of your Canson or Fabriano paper. So to start, we're just going to cut out this full shape. And you'll need an X-Acto or scissors. You could just cut this with scissors. I think it's faster and neater to cut it with an X-Acto. And then your ruler or a triangle. And you will need your double stick tape to put this thing together. So I'm going to cut along the shape lines, and I'm just going to cut right on top of those lines. I'm cutting the long edges first, but you can, however you want to approach that cutting, that's fine. And then I'm going to cut this diagonal. So this is the part when you're doing it freehand, not freehand, but when you're doing it without these lines on it, you will need your triangle, this 30, 60, 90 triangle. But I'll show you that when we get to it, kind of getting ahead here. Okay, so then you've got this cut out. And now what I was talking about scoring, you can use a bone folder. If you have another scoring tool that's more narrow, this is mine. It's like pretty thin here. This is what I like to use often. You can also use an awl as your scoring. So it's sharp, but not going to punch through the paper. That's another really good thing to use. Sort of a dull needle, not super, super sharp, is also a good thing to use. So like a needle. This is my little stash of needles. A needle that doesn't have a really sharp tip, but that's hard to get pressure behind. I'll show you with a bone folder though, because that's probably what most people are going to have. When you use a bone folder, so I'm going to just score along these diagonals. You could also do this, probably it'd be smarter to do it before you cut out the shape, because then you have the weight of the paper to hold it down. So when you're going to use a bone folder, you sort of have to pull away from the line so that you're scoring on the line. So I have to pull the ruler away from the line. So it's maybe a 32nd of an inch away from the printed line so that I can actually score on top of the line. So I just scored a few times. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to fold. But it's not, you don't have to do that part. So I just scored it and fold along that line. And then I can, the rest of it, I can sort of just follow along. And I'm trying to match up the edge that I already folded with the next fold. But really, it's the guide is the lines. So I made the first two, and you can see that second one's not as neat as the first one because I didn't use the scoring. So I think the best suggestion is to go ahead and score, because that's going to give you a neater line. And again, you got to back up. When you have something more narrow, you can kind of get closer to the line. I'm just going to go ahead and score at every diagonal. So you don't have to watch this part. If you want to fast forward through it, that's fine, but you can watch too. Sort of relaxing to watch someone do something like that. And so there's going to be, with this piece, there's not going to be any excess. Usually you have to cut off excess when you're doing it with just a strip of paper. And that's how I normally teach this in the classroom, is that we just start with a strip of paper to make it. But for this example and for this version of learning, we need to have something that everybody can access. So that's why I did the printout. Okay, so I've scored every line. That's going to help me fold this. It's just, you know, the paper is, the fibers have been broken or bent, and so they want to go that way. So I'm just accordion folding, which means I'm folding it in the opposite direction from the one before. So here, I'm going to fold it, and I'm really folding it away each time. And I am watching what I'm doing, trying to keep it straight as I go along, kind of trying to keep this edge straight. And then that last one. So you should have, by the end, a pretty neat stack. So that's how it looks. But then we're going to open this up. So it's not going to stay that way. And then I'm going to show you my process for folding this thing. And it's a little bit hard to follow. So you may have to watch it a couple of times before you understand. And also the diagram will help you as well. But you may have to watch this a couple of times. So I'm going to take the first 3 triangles, and then I'm going to fold the rest of that behind. So the rest of the strip is behind. And so now I have this like little number 7. That's what how I describe that. And the strip, most of the strip is behind that first 3. So I'm folding it back. Okay. And so you're going to think about this in terms of these lines of 3. So now we've got 1, 2, 3. And then here we're going to count this one as 1, 1, 2, 3. And now I need to go back again like this. Okay, so that's hanging down. I'm going to count down 3, including the one that's got the number 3 on it. So it's 1, 2, 3. That's a line of 3 now here. And then this other part of the strip is now going behind everything. There's just a little bit left here. And so now to make this, what I want to do is I want to bring this piece that's in the back to the front like this and close it around. And so that last little triangle, which is like a little flap, is going to then close around the back of the first shape there. And the way I can check this is I want to make sure that I have a seam, an open seam, but that does not go all the way across the piece. So there's an open seam here, here, and here, but they're interlaced. So there's no open flap. Okay. So because this is a video, I'm not going to do it again because you can watch that again. So now what I'm doing is that number 10, that last flap that I closed around the back like this, I'm going to put some double stick tape on the back of that number 10 and close it down. So the way that this should look is you should see number 9, 2, 3, and 8. So 8, 9, 2, 3. That's what you can see visually from the front of this when we started. And 10 is going to be on the back. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to open it and put some double stick tape on there. And this is just to hold it closed. And you could use glue, but you would have to put this under weight to keep it from rippling. And we're using like a text weight paper here too. I assume that that's how you printed that out from your printer. It's just on like a computer paper, laser paper. So all I'm doing here is I'm just peeling off that double stick tape that I put on that flap. And now I can close it down here like that. So on one side, I'm seeing 8, 9, 2, and 3. And then on the reverse, I'm seeing 10, 4, and 5. Okay, so now to operate this, what I want to do is those seams that I was talking about, those little flaps, and make sure that there's no like long seam that goes all the way across. It's not going to work if that's what it looks like. You need to make sure there's 1, 2, 3. Those seams, you want them to point up because that's where the piece is going to open. So you've got to bend this so that those point up. And then the other angles, you're going to bend down, and you might have to kind of give it a little fold, because what you're wanting to do here is make those pieces fold down, and you're going to grab them in the back. So it's kind of like a little triangle. It's a little star shape, and then you can open it at the top. Now this is the tricky thing. Once you get it going, it's going to go. But the thing to remember is to keep those seams pointed towards you, towards your face as you do this. And once you go through it a couple of times, so I'm holding this in the back. It's so hard to show this, but I'm pinching the back and opening at the tips, and it opens like a flower. The first few times you do it, it's going to be a little resistant, but then it starts to go. And then it's like sort of like a little fidget spinner. You can keep opening and closing it once it gets going. Okay, and so you can see there's different faces. So there's 6, 7, and 1. There's 8, 9, 2, and 3. So then we come back around. There's 10, 4, and 5. There's 8, 9, 2, and 3 again. Back here is 10, 4, and 5. There's 6, 7, and 1. On the back is that 8, 9, 2, and 3. 10, 4, and 5, 6, 7, and 1. And so what you can do for your mock-up, this is what I like to do, is just take a pencil and draw something on the face. Just like a little circle is helpful. And you could use markers or something to let it show better, some color, so you can get what you're doing. And then do it on the other side. Do something maybe a little bit bigger, or a star, or some other shape. This is going to help you understand how this thing works. And so then if I flex to the next area, okay, so I don't even really think about what is happening until I can get this on here, because this helps me figure out visually the order. And then, so now that circle that I just drew is on the edges. And now I drew this new one. So what happens when I go to the next layer? So that small one that I drew originally is now on the edges. Everything's on the edges right now. And now I'm back to that central image. And again. So you really want to take time and figure this out for yourself. If this is the structure that you want to use this one as a mock-up to figure out how to structure your piece. Because then imagine, in that handout that I have, you're going to want to have a string. So let's take that apart just to demonstrate. If I peel that tape. So now when I look at this layout again, this is what it's going to look like. 1 through 10, and this is where different things are going to be. This is why it would be helpful to do a color, because then, you know, I think right here, these are two different colors or two different panels. And then on the back, there is some imagery as well. So you'd want to think about this. All right, so I'm going to put this back together real quick. So there's my 7. I'm going to fold it back here, bring it to the front, and overlap. Number 10 in the back. So I put it back the way that it was, and now, and it's already, now it's folded the way it needs to be, so it goes right back into that operation. Oops. And I can just move it like that. So I'm doing this repeatedly, so hopefully, you know, you can get this, because this is one of those that's like, you really need to be in person to get it. It's hard to get it from a video. And you can't force this thing apart. You can't just pry it apart. You actually do have to let the mechanism kind of work itself, but you push, then you squeeze in the back, and it pops up here at the front. I'm just doing this a few times. And the paper is flexible because this is a text weight. So I'm going to do a demo with the strip of paper. I'm going to show you how to cut the strip, and then we'll do another one, but with scoring with the triangle. So let me pause the recording and come back. Okay, so I went and got a piece of this Canson paper. This is a full sheet, and I'm going to demonstrate how to cut a strip off of the edge, because normally we would have a cut trimmer and we could do it, but we don't have that. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and this is going to come in handy for other things that we do later in the semester, how to cut a strip or something off of a big sheet. So I'm going to move everything off of my cutting mat for a second. Put it in my tray so it's not sliding around. And then I'm really, because I'm sitting at a table, I'm really just going to put this edge of the sheet of paper on, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually use my mat to help me here. And I'm going to cut a 2.5-inch strip off the end of this paper like that. So this is where I need my long ruler, if I have a long ruler. This is an 18, and it's still not quite long enough, because I think this is 19 3/4 is the width of this sheet. Let me put that on here. I just want to see. Yeah, it's 19 3/4 normally is the width. But I want to cut a little 2.5-inch strip off. And so I'm going to use my mat to mark. So if you feel like you need to, you could also use tape to like just tape this down lightly for a second, which is what I think I'm going to do, because it's draping off the edge and my legs are kind of pushing it around and I feel like it's going to move. So I'm going to just find an edge and line it up as best as possible. And then I'm literally just going to lightly tape this down. I'm not pushing very hard on the tape. I'm just like pushing it down, and I feel like it's going to come off. And it was touching my fingers too, which is good, because that's going to take some of the stickiness off. Okay. So now I feel like it's held in place a little bit, so I can do this. And I'm going to stand up because I can't see on top. So I'm going to measure down. I'm going to do it with a pencil first, just so you guys can see what I'm doing. So 2.5 is 1 on my mat, 2.5. So it's this mark. I'm going to put my ruler. Actually, I'm just going to make a tick mark. And then I'm going to find the other side. So it's 2.5. And I'm going to find the other here. And then here, I'm going to just mark it in the middle, 2.5. And I'm just finding an inch mark. And then I'm going to go 1, 2.5, and make a little light tick mark on here. So now I can just line up those marks and go. Since if I had a longer, if I had like a 24-inch ruler, I could probably get to the other, I could definitely get to the other side and do it in one cut. but because I don't, I'm going to do it in stages. So I'm going to cut about halfway down the sheet, and then I'm going to shift, and then I'm going to touch this other tick mark at the other end, but then I'm going to put my knife in here and push up against it. That's going to be my first mark, and then I can get this one if I feel like it looks straight. So I'm going to continue. So I'm putting my knife back into that mark, or into that cut, and then I can keep going. Is this perfect? No. Is it okay? Yes. And that's what we're going for. So I think I might have gotten a hair off, but you know, it's pretty good. So I'm gonna go with this. So now I've got my strip, and I can take it off of the mat, take that tape off, and now I can make that first cut. So now this is where I need my triangle. And maybe there's another way to do this. This is how I learned to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the short edge of my triangle and I'm lining it up on the bottom of this strip, and I'm putting this lower corner into the corner of the strip of paper. And then I'm just lining it up straight along the edge like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this little triangle here. So I take my knife and I kind of shifted it when I reached. Just make sure you're lined up. And then you're going to cut this off. Okay, so now you have a strip that looks like this. So now what I want to do is I need to get at least the first angle on here. And I'm going to use my awl to do this, to score. So now what I want to do, here's how my triangle was. Okay, it was in this direction. Now I'm going to flip it over like that. And now what I want to do is I want to line this up at the top, and I want to use this angle. So I'm going to line it up at the bottom, just like it was. But then I'm going to match it up to that top cut, to the top of this angle here. So it's across the bottom, and then it's lined up at this cut at the top, like that. And then I'm going to score down like this. So I'm just double checking that everything's lined up. And I left a little room. I can kind of see that little corner, and I'm going to score with my awl. Just lightly. I'm doing it light, and I'm really laying my awl down at an angle, so it's just pushing into the paper without scratching and without poking it. So a steep angle here, and using the awl to score. Okay, so you can see if that shows up on the camera, but I'm gonna kind of shine it around a little bit so you can maybe see that score mark. And then I'm gonna take that and fold. So now I can start using the strip of paper itself to kind of guide me. And if my angle looks off, I can always just pull it up into place and just use my finger pressure to push it down. So that's the first triangle right there. And now what I'm going to do is for the rest of the strip, I'm just going to fold using this angle as my guide. So I'm just kind of folding back and using that triangle to guide me. And I'm just looking at the edge, trying to line it up, and I'm looking at this edge to make sure it's straight. And then I come back in the other direction, and I'm really folding the strip back more than I'm folding a triangle. I'm folding the strip back to match these edges. So here I'm matching, and here I'm matching the edge. And then, so I keep just kind of pushing it gently, and then I can crease it down tight. And then flip it this way. So you're really just accordion folding a strip, but with triangles instead of just a straight 90-degree line. So I make my little adjustments to make sure it's as straight as possible. And then I just crease, and you can see I'm just stacking them up as I go, kind of folding and flipping it back like this. And then matching my folds as I go. And then again. So ultimately I want to have 10 triangles folded, just like I showed you on that, the handout, they're numbered, but this, you just got to count them. So I just keep folding along because I know that the ratio is 1 to 7 and it's 2.5 is what I cut. I know I only need a strip that's 17.5. And I have one that's 19 3/4 from that strip of paper off the edge. I'm just folding. I'm going to fold this one and then I'm going to count and see if I have 10. I'm not counting. I'm not keeping up with it. I'm just doing it for right now. So if I fold an extra one, it's fine. Okay, let's count. So I'm just unfolding this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got to do 2 more. So I'm going to gather that back up. I think I got it now. So I did 2 more. Let's count them. And you have to have 10 completely folded triangles. So double check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I have 10 ready to go. And now I can cut off the excess here. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to fold, because it's folded like this, I'm going to use my triangle right here or my ruler. I just need an edge. And I'm going to put it right up against into that edge, into the fold. And now I'm going to cut this off. So I need to cut off the excess. And then I can throw that away. And now I think a good idea would be to number these because this is still a mock-up. So let's number them. Note to self, turn your email off so it doesn't keep dinging like that. I'm just going to start numbering like this because this will help us compare it to that first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here's the little first one that I did. Scraps out of the way, get some stuff out of the way here. I need my double stick tape because I'm going to put it together. Okay, so I'm going to do this folding again. Count across 3, take the whole strip and fold it back. And then, you know, I'm thinking to myself, it actually might be a good idea to kind of break the folds. Remember how we did that when we were making the single sheet books? I think that would help us when we get to where we need to flex this thing. If we didn't have such strong folds in it. So if I break the folds, which means to just go back against the direction that I originally folded it, I think it'll help put this together. So I'm taking a second here and breaking each fold so that it kind of, the piece of paper relaxes as well once you do that. So it's going to want to bend in either direction that we go. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, again, we'll start 1, 2, 3 across, take the full strip and hang it behind. So you get this little 7 shape. So you can see that this is going to be one of those seams. So 1, 2, 3 across, and then counting the first one, 1, 2, 3 down. I'm going to take everything behind again, like that. So this last one, the number 10 is, the 1 is on top right now, and the 9 is underneath. Now I'm going to bring that 9 to the front. Okay, so I'm like weaving it, like looping number 9 on top of number 2. And then I can put the tape on the back of number 10, and it's going to close like that. So I'm going to take a second and do that, put that double stick tape on it. This is easier to do really with a bigger sheet of paper and with a little bit firmer sheet of paper. So I'm just putting a couple. Usually if I was doing this for real and I wanted it to last, I would probably put a little frame of tape around, but just for our purposes. Okay, and when I close this down, I do want to make sure it's lined up straight. It's coming down in the right spot. Okay, and now I want these seams facing towards me. And because that helped a lot to break the folds, I can tell this is going to work better because it's wanting to go in that direction. So down, 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 this one. Wait. Oh no, not that one. This one. This seam is up, this seam is up, this seam is up. So it's like a little triangular shape like this. That's demonstrated a little bit better. Seam up, seam up, seam up. And now when I grab this, I'm grabbing it at that peak, and I'm grabbing it at the peak in the back. And when I squeeze it, that's when it opens. You cannot force it open. And then once I go around a couple times, this is kind of like a little triangular shape here. That's going to open at the front. And then once I've gone through a couple times, now it's fluid. It just goes and goes. Okay. So this one's just like this. 1, 6, 7, 1, 6, 7. And you can play around with how to organize your information on these. And so for our purposes, I want you to make the demo version, and I do want you to make one. You don't have to use the cans and paper, but I want you to try to make one from a strip of paper. So even if you use a little 8.5 by 11 and you cut a 1:7 ratio, that's fine. So you can do that. But I do think it's a good thing to learn how to do it from just a strip of paper, because that's normally what you would have. You wouldn't have the diagram. And that's what you're going to use when you make one for real, if you decide to do this structure. All right, so that's the Hexaflexagon. All right, thanks.